This is Ofoye Murray, the digital reader. And, you know, in my time just messing around, I'm going through the YouTubes and looking at different booktubers. I like to do that to see what they're reading, see if there's a book that they're talking about that I might have an interest in. And one of the YouTubers I bumped into, her name was Jacqueline Brill at Brill Books, links below. And the video that caught my attention is the one where she said that she read 20 books in a month. So, of course, I looked at the video, and her reading 20 books a month, she kind of went through how she did it. It was a mixture of audio books and regular books, but still in my mind, just that number, 20 books in 1 month, just sparked me. And I was like, wow. So this video is pretty much just math. I just was kind of curious, being an old compensation person, thinking, so what would you have to do mathematically to read 20 books in a month? And, you know, what would you have to go through? Now, I'm making a big assumption that an audio book that the narrator is generally going to read as fast, he's going to narrate as fast as a normal person would read. And if somebody is a super fast reader, I'm also going to make some assumptions that they might play their audio books at a faster speed, like 1.2 or so, which sometimes some people do when they're, you know, doing things in audiobooks. So all that to be said, let's start out with 20 books in 1 month. Now I am assuming 300 pages a book, so that's going to be 6,000 pages. I'm going to assume a 30-day month, and if that's the case, then the person's going to have to read 200 pages per day to get through 6,000 pages in 30 days. I'm also going to be assuming a reading speed of 75 pages per hour, which works out to around 375 words per minute. 75 pages per hour is about 150% more than what the average reading speed is, which is 50 pages per hour, 250 words a minute. But I'm assuming to get through 20 books in 1 month, you need to be a fast reader, and you probably will be listening to your audiobooks at like 10% faster or 20% faster. All that in mind, that means that if somebody is reading 75 pages per hour, they'd have to read, on average, 2.6 hours a day to get through 20 books. So, is 20 books in 1 month doable? These are some of the things I kind of was thinking about that you would kind of need, goals you would kind of need to hit to do 20 books in a month. So that's 2.6 hours a day, or in a month that means you have to read 78 hours. So let's just assume that you exercise 3 times a week, which comes out to 12 times a month, and you're doing it with an audio book. Let's say that one exercise session is 1 hour. That means, you know, all the time you're going to be spending exercising, and maybe you have it on when you're walking to the exercise machines and wiping stuff down. So all that is going to be about an hour. So I would say for the month that's going to be a total of 12 hours. Then I'll assume that when you're home, I'm assuming you have a job. Most people, you know, have a job or school or something, that Monday through Friday you're just reading an hour a week. Not too much, 1 hour a week, Monday through Friday. That's going to be 20 hours over the course of a month, a 30-day month. Let's assume that on the weekends, you know, some weekends, you know, either that's counting both Saturday and Sunday, that you'll have 1 or 2 sessions where it's just like you get to really put in some reading time. So I'm assuming 5 hours over the weekend, and 5 hours over 4 weeks, that's 20 hours. So also I want to include, and this is really going to be mostly audiobooks, but it doesn't have to be. I guess it could kind of include time you spend if you commute to work on a train or something. But this is just basically the time you spend if you have a job in general commute and or drive time. So I'm assuming that 1 hour a day you're either going to be driving to work and listening to an audio book, and that's to work and back from work, or you're going to be on a train, commuting to work and back to work. So all of that involved, I'm going to give that an hour, and that means that over 30 days, that's going to be 30 hours worth of time. So adding all of that up, that's going to be 82 hours a month. So you can actually get more than 78 if you kind of hit those goals. So I'm assuming that this 82-hour a month goal that we can hit if we hit those other mathematical goals is going to be heavy on audio. And what I'm thinking about is probably in that month, you're probably going to listen to 42 hours of audiobooks and probably 40 hours of visual book reading. And that's because I'm counting the time during Monday through Friday, and I'm counting the time over the weekends is when you're going to be doing visual book reading. I'm counting the time in the gym and commuting as to when you're going to be doing audio book reading, although it might flip-flop a little bit if you are commuting on a train or transit. Then that audio time, that 30 hours a month, might actually be visual book reading. But this is, once again, just kind of, I'm assuming it's going to have to be pretty audio heavy. So can you do the 78 hours if you just are doing visual book reading? So 78 hours of just visual book reading, that generally means you'd have to read 2.5 hours a day, Monday through Friday. That would be 50 hours over a 30-day period. And then over the weekend, you'd have to read 7 hours over that weekend for 28 hours over that period. And that would get you to 78. So you could definitely do it. And honestly, 2.5 hours a day reading isn't terrible. I mean, it's not super crazy. I mean, I would say for me personally, most days I read about an hour. You know, some days if I'm just getting close to finishing off a book, or if it's a book I'm really into, I might just get caught in the wee hours reading, you know, 2 to 3 hours. But I'm just generally, I would say 2.5 hours per day, Monday through Friday, and 7 hours over the weekend to get to 78 if you're just doing visual book reading. So, of course, I have to wrap in, could I read 20 books in 1 month? And where would an average person fall as far as how much reading they'd have to do? So, I'd still have to read 200 pages per day. Now, my reading speed, I use an app called Bookshelf that I start every time I read, and it gives me a whole bunch of stats, but one stat it definitely gives me is how fast I read. And so I know I read 40 pages an hour, or 200 words a minute. So at the speed that I read, 40 pages an hour, I'd need to read 5 hours a day on average to get through that. It would be theoretically doable because, well, I'm retired and I don't do anything, but still, that amount of reading is just a lot. Maybe I could break it up into chunks, but I don't think there have been a couple days I've read 5 hours, but I can only think maybe 1 or 2 days, and the book was incredible. If it's an incredible book, I could see reading 5 hours 1 or 2 days of that week, but I couldn't do it every single day. That's dedication. And once again, we're just talking about reading. The average person is going to generally read about 50 pages an hour, and so the average person would need to read 4 hours a day to get through 20 books in a month. So once again, these are just numbers. One thing I really did like about Jacqueline's video is, not for me, I'm generally a disorganized kind of guy, but her organization system is very cool. She's got little icons for the audio, little icons for the books that she visually reads, little icons for the books that she gets from that service where people give books for people who are going to review them. I forget what it's called because I don't use that service. But just kind of got me thinking, you know, as far as you're concerned, do you think you could do 20 books in a month? And if you did, what would you have to do? So that's it. This is LaFoy Murray, the digital reader. Keep reading.